what you mean. When you talk about generative AI in general, I think there's a reason that Meta is invested in Torch and in sort of open source generative AI. And I think it's actually what a lot of people don't know, or maybe you won't agree with me, is that what Meta is really trying to do is to make the social experience more exciting. And so when I described sort of doing fine tunes for you and your friends, that's kind of what we're going to see, where you can, and I think if you notice, like Snapchat did a little bit of this with the Bitmojis, but like if I want to show myself, like I mentioned earlier, slam dunking a basketball on John, and it's a Python basketball or something, I can do that with a really cool image gen, but I can't do that because they don't know who John is. And I can almost do like a RAG image model or just a fine tuning, and then it would make a perfect image of me playing basketball with Dustin, who has a big lambda on his t-shirt because he's the lambda calculus guy, or something like that. And so the point is, like, Meta's sort of going to that place where we can create maybe even our own videos, where you can say, you know what, I want to post on Instagram today, but I want to post a video of me hitting a baseball, out of the Yankee Stadium. And that's hard to do because I don't know how to hit a baseball at a Yankee Stadium. I can barely hit it to first base. But it'd be cool if you can generate that generative AI video for me, and all my followers would see it and say, wow, that's cool. And I think we're going to get to that place where Meta puts out a model like that, and it runs on PyTorch, which is their system, and it even may run on their chip, which they've made. So I think that's kind of the future we're getting to, and that's why these social media companies, especially Meta, but also ByteDance, have invested really hard in AI. I think that's what is kind of coming around the corner.
Yeah, social media definitely makes it more accessible to everybody because most people are on social media, and it kind of, no offense, but it kind of dumbs it down for everybody, and it makes it more accessible. Anyway, hi, John.
Well, I could make content that I couldn't make in real life. I think that's the cool thing. If I wanted to, have a picture of me and Kim Kardashian, it's something that'd be really hard for me to do in real life, but it could be something I could do and make a joke out of it or something like that with these models, which I think could make just the content creation abilities can kind of all of a sudden become like, the sky becomes the limit. John might have been upset about what I said.
How dare you?
Well, you could be slam dunking a basketball on me, and I have a JavaScript logo on my jersey.
Well, we don't need AI generation for that. We can make that up.
I forgot how tall and strong you are.
Yeah, the tallest and the strongest. Well, congrats on the launch, man.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun working with this alien language web GPU. It's just this bizarre corner of like WASM. I don't know how much you've done with WASM, if ever.
Basically nothing.
Oh, okay. I thought you might have. I know you're a good web dev.
We used to do our initial LLM prototyping in JavaScript, but
that's wild.
We've since moved to C.
Oh, that's great. Great. So no Python.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a big front end though.
Well, it's funny to see Karpathy do his sort of GPT-2 in C. I hope that we see GPT-3 in C too, or other kind of like LLMs. But we saw the Grok model in JAX, which was kind of a funny thing because JAX is probably the least popular of all these. But
I'd like to see Llama 2 or Llama 3, same architecture anyways. But if you could do like a full training from scratch, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I think that these companies have been loath to put out their data sets and loath to put out their training scripts, but I think Karpathy's demystifying that a little bit, and we're going to see more and more, more and more of that sort of become available. At least these techniques, as years go by, the techniques will start to like slip, and people put them in papers, and people talk amongst each other, and we'll get a sense for like, okay, how many images do you need to make a really good image model? So I really like the fact that like there's always going to be this cutting edge, but there will be an accessible middle ground for the rest of us. So yeah, it's a really cool space. It's pretty different from the stuff you're doing, I think, but is your are your like AI techniques, do you think they'd be amenable to the edge, or do you think they have to stay on the server?
Right now, we've been pretty heavily invested in the server because we want to be able to take advantage of scaling up a lot on a per request basis. But I think in the long run, we'd probably want to do some edge models because there's a lot of what we're doing that could totally run on consumer devices. It's just that the models aren't smart enough at a low enough scale yet. But I think maybe in a year or two, we'd be interested in doing something on the edge.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, a lot of enterprise computers are fairly powerful, and
Yeah.
more and more you're going to see companies try to provide, like Apple M4. They've already talked about how many neural cores are going to be on there and how optimized it's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if ARM, Apple, NVIDIA, maybe even Intel start shipping more and more towards AI, where a lot of this compute is oriented towards, MATMLs, tensor operations, so forth. And your average home desktop computer or your average enterprise desktop computer may actually come ready to run these kinds of models because they're coming so damn prevalent, whether you're doing business work or generative work. And certainly people who rely, the Adobe customers that rely on, that are artists that are already kind of working in Blender, working in things that require GPUs, they're a shoo-in for using tools like this as well on the edge. So I definitely see a future where that's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised by how good consumer hardware is. Like, our smallest models can run on our gaming PCs as well.
Right.
And on my gaming PC, which has like a 4090 and a pretty good CPU, the overall performance is almost like half as good as what we're seeing on our
Right.
H100 servers.
Yeah, and depending on how you optimize it or not optimize it, it could be even closer to equal, we found. But I think that the NeurIPS publications came out today on Archive. There were the 300 papers on Archive, and quite a number of them were about inference speedups. So software is still getting better and better. There was a nice paper about time step improvements for diffusion models where we waste a lot of time in these time steps, and there's a more efficient way to do it. And so there's an improvement every day algorithmically for running inference code. And that means that more and more we need a less powerful chip, and more a gaming chip might do the trick. Of course, there's sort of that paradoxical law, what is it, something's law, I forgot who it was, where we just tend to end up eating more of that processor. I don't know that that's been the case. I think that law's kind of ended. Windows runs really fast. Microsoft isn't trying to use more of the CPU on Windows. So I think there's a lot of room for algorithmic improvement in GPU software that'll allow for a lot of the stuff to move to the edge. And maybe it's just stuff like video or super high-end, training or something like that has to stay at the server. And that's kind of the way we do real work now, right? I mean, if there's a really complex calculation on a web browser, maybe it goes to the server, but there's really nothing that complicated that couldn't be done on the edge. And I feel like, that's sort of the way things everywhere works, because quite frankly, I don't want to pay for it. I'd rather do it on the user's machine. Why should I pay for it? It makes my business really, really tricky. And again, for Gupta, where we served up to 400,000 people now, if there was some component that we had to do on our servers, it would be, based on the web app, it would be terrible. Like something like auth or whatever. If we had to get a whole bunch of compute for that, it would be really expensive. Thankfully, everything on JavaScript and HTML and CSS, all that stuff is done right on the user's machine. And with Chrome, it takes a lot of RAM, but it doesn't cost us anything. And I think that's the sort of key thing here. If you want to be an AI, you have to rent these boxes, and it does cost you a lot. And if you could push that to the user, it's a hell of a great business model. So I think that's it. I really appreciate everyone listening. You guys are great. We'll be around I'm on Twitter if you need anything. Just let me know.